Yo everyone, it's Julien, and today I'm super excited to be showing you how to make JMXX style basslines. As usual, you can get the project file and samples from this video in the description for free, so make sure to pick that up. And yeah, let's dive in. So, this bassline here sounds like this on its own. It's the one you heard in the intro. And so, the first thing I want to say about this is that if you listen to it, you can tell it's very round and like warm sounding. And so this is the first main thing I would say is important about JMXX's basslines, is they're always very warm and round. There's never really like a super hard raw bass, or like, I don't know, they just always tend to sound, like I said, very warm and round and just analog-ish. So the way that I achieved this here was with Operator. I basically just did some pretty simple FM synthesis. I have one sine wave for the first oscillator, and then a sine wave for the second oscillator. The coarse pitch is up to 2, so it's an octave up. And then what you can see I did here is I started with a sine wave, which will be just this harmonic here. And then I drew in this one. So if you don't know an operator, if you go to this little oscillator tab here, you can actually draw in harmonics over top of your waveform. And so that was what I did. I just started with a sine wave, and then I took this harmonic, and yeah, I just turned it up a bit. And what this does is it adds an extra harmonic to the sound, so it's subtly adding more warmth, because what creates warmth is more harmonics on the sound. So that was essentially that, and then I had the level there. And you can see I have the envelope set like this. I have a similar envelope on the first oscillator, but on the second one, the decay is a little bit shorter. And what that does is it just makes this more of a pluck. If I play it up high, you can kind of hear what's going on there. So yeah, so it's just a pretty simple FM kind of pluck. I was just going for, I almost wanted like a triangle wave kind of sound, but I wanted to give it my own little touch, I feel like. So that was why I did that, as opposed to just using a triangle wave. So then the only other thing that I did inside of Operator for this bassline is I set the voices to 1 here on this tab, and then I turned on the glide a bit. And you can see, when I talk about the notes, I'll talk about this more, but you can hear there are these little gliding notes. So that was just for those. That's something I hear a lot in JMXX's music, so of course I wanted to add it here. And that's how you do that. You just essentially set this to be monophonic with the voices, and then turn on the glide. So after the operator here, I have 2 effects. I have this saturator, and then I have this auto pan. So the saturator is set up like this. I essentially have a ton of drive, and then I have the wave shaper set this way. So the bass frequency is there, the depth is there, and then I kind of just went crazy with these controls. It's not really a whole lot of method to the madness with this. It's kind of just like you have to play around with it and dial it in. And I was really just trying to accentuate the kind of like warmness this sound already had. Here's without it. So you can already hear like that had the sound, but what this is doing is it's just taking that sound and making it a little bit crunchier. And yeah, I think the thing is, I think a lot of JMXX's music, he uses like a lot of analog gear, like tape machines and guitar pedals and stuff like that. And more specifically runs a synth through a lot of those things. So adding saturation like this, where it's essentially just adding crunch on top of the sound, is a really good way to achieve that, because yeah, it's just what you can do in the box is use saturation to get that sound. So then after that, I have this auto pan on here, and what this is doing is it's doing like a kind of faux sidechain, like a fake sidechain. What I did was I set the phase to 0, so instead of turning the volume of the left and right ear up and down, which is what it does when you have it on the auto panning mode, when you turn the phase to 0, it's just controlling the volume of the mono signal. So all you have to do to make this like a fake kind of sidechain is just sort of shape it to fit that. So that was what I did. I have this little saw waveform here, and I inverted it so it's going up, and then I have the rate set to quarter notes. And there we go. The only reason why I didn't sidechain this to the kick is because this particular kick is kind of boomy, and so it wouldn't work very well for sidechaining, so I just kind of did it that way. So as far as the notes go on this sound, that's another thing I want to talk about. If you listen, and you can see as well, you can hear this is like a very bouncy kind of like pattern. And that's something I want to talk about first of all, is that the bass line tends to be kind of like the main driving thing in Jamie XX's tracks. And really, I mean, that's with a lot of music, but especially in his music, I've noticed this. And so you have to kind of do one of these really bouncy, like moving bass lines, like I said. Like you want it to be kind of keeping the track alive the whole time. So that was the goal here. I just made this cool thing with some 16th notes. And another thing that this bass line kind of illustrates as well is that the bass line is usually the driving force, not just like rhythmically or as far as like energy, but melodically as well. If you listen to this thing, all I have here that's melodic is the bass and this drone. And you can hear the bass is really, like I said, like driving that. Like it's really, it's informing you what the chord progression is. It's playing the chord progression. But more importantly, it's the thing that's really keeping this going melodically. So that's why you have to kind of focus on the bass line. And it really has to be a big thing in this style because of that. It's really one of the main driving forces. So then the other thing I'll talk about here are the glides, because I mentioned those earlier. But you can see there are some parts here where it glides up. And I think these are pretty important. Jamie XX does this a lot as well. And I think it gives it like this cool kind of like futuristic vibe. So the way that I achieved that was, like I said, I just did it in the in Operator with the voices and then that glide thing. And then here, I just kind of, the key is just to find where it fits really well rhythmically. So like if you listen to this with the drums, when it comes in there, it grooves really, really well with the drums. So, again, it's just a matter of, like, kind of finding where the glides will fit in rhythmically. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it for the bass. I will quickly show you the other elements here. The first thing here is this little drone, which sounds like this. So the way that I made this was with Operator. It's just some FM synthesis. I have a sine wave and then oscillator 2. I did a very similar thing to what I did with the bass. So you can see on the bass, it's like this user waveform, which means I drew in that little harmonic there. I did the same thing here. What I did was I just started with a sine wave, and I'll show you. If you start with a sine wave, you can see it's just got that one harmonic there. What I did was I basically got rid of that, and then I just added these two. And then I pitched that up an octave. And then what I did after that was I went into this LFO here, and I have the LFO on the volume of the whole synth, and then on the oscillator B pitch. And it's also on 1%, so it's just doing like a very slight pitch bend to oscillator B, which is giving it like some cool fluctuation. And then you can see also I have these little glide notes in here. So to do those, I did the same thing as I did on the bass. I just set the voices to 1, and then gave it a little bit of glide. And yeah, after that I have a chorus, and then that's going to a little bit of reverb. And then I have a saturator with the wave shaper here, which you can see. I did quite a bit too. Again, similar to the bass, I kind of just took the sound and played with it. Here it is without the saturator. And then with. So that's just kind of helping to sort of bring it to life. And then after that, I just have this fake sidechain thing. Same thing as the one on the bass that I was talking about earlier. So this drone is, again, just kind of like Jamie XX-esque element. I've definitely heard a lot of this kind of stuff in his tracks, so I wanted to make something like that here to show you. And then after that, here's a drum group. So the drums sound like this. And what we have here is we just have this kick. It's just like kind of a deep, punchy kick. This actually kind of relates to the bass line because it needs to work really well with the bass. So that's another thing when you're working with these kind of tracks is you need to sort of like set up your kick and your bass together, which is what I did here. I started with a kick and then I built the bass around that. But yeah, if you listen to these two, they work really well together. They're not clashing. They're not like, they don't have any kind of problems. And this is something that you really want to aim for in your tracks. Like, this is why I say listen to the bass and the kick at the same time when you're making them, because you'll get them to work really well together. And what can happen a lot of times, too, and this definitely happens to me all the time, is You can make the track where like you start with the drums and then throw the bass in later, or maybe start with the bass and throw the drums in later. For whatever reason, you're not making them at the same time. And then what ends up happening is they're clashing and you just hear some rumbling in the low end and you have no idea what's going on. And that's probably what it is. So I like to just kind of set them up together and it, gets it out of the way. But yeah, so it's just kind of like a nice boomy kick that fits under the bass. Then I have a bit of saturation on there. But you can hear it's just beefing it up. Then I have this rim shot. This is a pretty simple rim shot. It's just kind of like the type that Jamie XX would use usually in his tracks. And then I have this percussion drum rack here. So just a bunch of sounds to sort of fill out the beat. And then on the overall group here, I have a bit of saturation, so you can hear it's a little bit crunchy. If I turn it off, you can hear they're not as like textured and nice sounding. I feel like the saturation just sort of ties the drums together. So that's pretty much it for this one. Like I said, I just wanted to make a quick video to sort of show you some techniques to make those big, nice Jamie XX style bass lines. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Check out my social media, which is on the screen now. You can get the project file and samples from this video for free in the description. So make sure to pick that up as well. And yeah, thank you again, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with the tutorial.